everyone, we have some updates in the Patrick Frazee trial, day 10. That's Friday today, the 15th of November. There were a lot of really very damning things that happened today to, I think, really put Patrick as a very guilty man. So let's take a look at what happened and go through some of this and see what's going on here. So the first witness on the stand to give their testimony was Jonathan Priest, and he's a former longtime Denver police officer who now specializes as an expert in bloodstain pattern analysis and crime scene reconstruction. Priest testified that the blood stains found inside Kelsey Barrett's townhouse lined up with the bloodied person who had been struck repeatedly, as much as 10 to 15 times, based on splatter marks and blood that seeped into the floor, according to Priest's testimony. Bloody footprints discovered around Barrett's home showed that a person was likely stepping in a pool of blood, Priest said. People aren't easy to kill, he said. They're very resilient, and beatings are nasty in that they don't really have the effect that they have on television. Priest, who has attended several hundred hours of training in bloodstain and blood spatter analysis, said the field involves identifying particular bloodstain types and concluding what could have happened and could not have happened to cause those stains and patterns. With that, 4th Judicial District Attorney Dan May began asking Priest about the bloodstains found inside Barrett's townhouse, and when asked if the bloodstains indicated if someone could have been struck by a bat, Priest said, "Certainly, it's consistent." Kenny testified earlier in the trial that Frazee struck Barrett with a baseball bat, killing her. Priest said when it came to blood spatters in the apartment, all the drops were only centimeters or millimeters long on whatever surface they landed on. As Priest testified, the prosecution played body camera video of Kenny showing authorities where she saw blood in Barrett's home on December 21st, 2018. This was the day after she told authorities her full story. Blood was also found on the television in the townhome, and Kenny said she saw blood and bloody footprints all over the bathroom floor. Priest said a footprint indicates contact with a relatively significant source of blood. In the video, Kenny also said she saw blood in Barrett's kitchen, including on an appliance, a coffee maker, on the counters, and high up on the wall. Priest said that if someone is struck by something, blood would splatter in and or with the length of it depending on the force of the strike. Blood would splatter in an arc with the length of it depending on the force of the strike. This is consistent with what I'd expect to see if I saw a blood source in the living room that being struck with an object multiple times over, Priest said. In the video with Kenny, they went up to the second floor to the loft, and she pointed out bloody footprints upstairs, more indication of a large source of blood, Priest said. May later pulled a picture of the blood on the toilet in Barrett's bathroom. Priest described the blood as a transfer stain, meaning something that had blood on it had contacted the toilet and left the stain. Something bloody contacted this toilet bowl, Priest said. Can you tell us what it is? What it was? May asked. No, Priest said. May then pulled up a picture of Barrett's couch, which had wipe marks where someone had used a towel of some sort to wipe the couch with a cleaning liquid in a circular motion. In my experience, it is consistent with an effort to clean up an area of anything, Priest said. May pulled up more pictures which showed blood drops on the fireplace, grout on the front and back of a wooden chair, on a hardwood floor. On the hardwood floor, blood had seeped between the cracks and bloodied the sides of the floorboards, which can't be seen from above. May also brought up a picture of blood on a floorboard similar to the previous ones he'd shown, but this one had tested positive for somebody other than Barrett. Priest noted that the stain would have required a lot of blood, not just a few drops, to make that sort of stain. May also presented a piece of the floorboard in court and gave it to Priest to look at. Priest said he noted that some hard object made contact with the wood in 2 separate locations because there were significant indentations. He said it wasn't consistent with wood imperfections, but rather something interrupting or hitting it. May asked Priest again if the bloodstains in Barrett's townhome were consistent with someone being beaten by a bat. Oh, absolutely, Priest said. At the very minimum, he explained, the victim would have been struck twice, though it was likely more. One to start the bleeding and one to create the impact pattern. One to start the bleeding and one to create the impact pattern, Priest said. But a single impact creates a bit of a pattern. What Kenny describes, I see something much more massive. Priest then estimated there were 10 to 15 strikes to the victim. May then asked Priest how he would explain why there was so little blood discovered in the townhome. Priest said the splatter stains across the different areas of the home indicated a significant source of blood, and that the presence of cleaning fluids explained why investigators didn't see a lot of that blood. May concluded his questioning by asking if Priest considered the townhome to be the scene of a homicide. There is nothing here that tells me that death was an accident, Priest said. It's very consistent with what I'd expect to see in a homicide. During the cross-examination, Ashley Fridovich Porter confirmed that Priest did not see most of the splatters because Kenny had previously cleaned it. When she asked if it was fair to say a large part of his analysis was based on what Kenny said, Priest said yes, but also his experience in previous similar situations. During a redirect, May said that there were no inconsistencies between what Priest found in the townhouse and Kenny's testimony. The jury asked how much blood the offender of someone in this crime would have on them afterwards. Priest said typically the offender doesn't get much blood on themselves because of the direction of the force, especially in a beating. Blood is usually forced away from the individual delivering the blow, he said. Barrett's father leaned forward in his front row seat in the Teller County courtroom and cried as Jonathan Priest testified in vivid language and with swinging motions how blood could have been splattered across Barrett's Woodland Park condo. Former inmate testifies that Frazee asked him to kill witnesses. The former inmate, whom prosecutors asked media not to identify out of fear of retaliation from prison gangs, said he met Frazee in the Teller County Jail on September 26th of this year. They were housed together in the same pod from the time they met until October 12th. During that time, they talked to each other and they wrote letters. In their second conversation, Frazee asked the fellow inmate about the tattoo on his face. He was curious about what it meant. The inmate, twice convicted of felonies, told Frazee it was from a prison gang, but he was no longer a member. The two inmates were curious about each other's cases. The inmate said Frazee was concerned about his own upcoming trial in Barrett's killing. Frazee asked if the prison gang could do something about the case, saying he could possibly bond his fellow inmate out of jail if he helped him murder the witnesses, the former inmate testified. When prosecutors asked the former inmate if Frazee asked him more than once to murder a witness in this case, he said yes. The prosecutors then began showing the handwritten letters between Frazee and the former inmate. The letters referenced instruction or suggestions to carry out the hits, so to speak, on the witnesses, and named specific witnesses, including Kenny and her friend Michelle Stein. In cross-examination, Frazee's attorney, Adam Steigerwald, questioned the former inmate about how he got involved in the case. Steigerwald, in the questioning, said the former inmate met with prosecutors on Monday night and had previously contacted the defense attorneys but declined to talk. Steigerwald asked him if he had considered selling the letters on eBay, since Frazee would be famous. The former inmate said he did consider that, but finally felt like he wanted to do the right thing and testify. Prosecutor Beth Reed then called up Greg Slater, the CBI agent who went through 17 of the letters that Frazee and the inmate allegedly passed back and forth while in the Teller County Jail. Slater said he reviewed these letters. He said all the letters appeared to match Frazee's handwriting. Slater read the letters aloud in the courtroom. Letter 1 read, "You know where to find Crystal, Jean Lee Kenny, Chad Lee, Michelle Stein, John Moore, Wendy Clark. They all need to disappear until at least November 22nd, after the trial." The letter listed out who each individual is. The writer instructed the receiver to call or text her using a fake name to say the horses have been taken care of. The elk hunt was successful. While Sheila's Frazee's name was not on the note, her landline and cell phone were. "My life and my little girl's life depend on you," the letter read. The writer wrote in letter 8 that the planning got his blood flowing. "If I walk out, you and me could pull off all kinds of shite. I know all kinds of rich ranchers around the West." In the same letter, Frazee allegedly wrote he'd really like to see Kenny with a bullet in her head. In letter 9, Frazee allegedly claimed that the DA's office was working with Kenny to give her quotes to say so that her testimony matched the circumstantial evidence in the case. Reed asked about Slater's December 20th, 2018 interview with Kenny, and Slater confirmed it was the first time he'd heard the story, and it was the same one she told in court. In letter 13, Frazee allegedly said, "I'm not the monster they say I am. I don't know what happened or where she went." In letter 15, he allegedly wrote, "I'm excited if we can pull this off. Only thing better would be if Crystal sent someone a text from her home confessing and telling the truth that I didn't have anything to do with it at all." Slater and then all 5 disappear, referencing Kenny's family, including her children and Chad Lee. The writer of the letters, which the prosecutors say was Frazee, instructed the receiving party to flush the notes often. So let's recap everything. An inmate who was in the same jail as Patrick Frazee testified today that the accused murderer of Kelsey Barrett asked him to kill multiple witnesses in the case, including Crystal Kenny. Prosecutors showed 17 different letters that a witness, who's a former inmate, said he exchanged with Frazee, who was in the same jail. The man is on probation now. In their past notes, Frazee asked the man to kill witnesses: Kenny, Michelle Stein, who's Kenny's friend in Idaho, John Moore, Frazee's friend who previously testified, Wendy Clark, Moore's significant other, and lead Colorado Bureau of Investigation agent Greg Slater. He described where they live now and what they look like. In a testimony, Slater confirmed the descriptions of each person and their places of residence were all accurate. In one letter, Frazee allegedly wrote he'd really like to see Kenny with a bullet in her head. Today was already expected to be a big day in court as closing arguments were possible, but the prosecution rested its case shortly after lunch, and Frazee's attorneys did not call any witnesses. 4th Judicial District Judge Scott Sells decided to push closing arguments to Monday. But before court broke for the weekend, Sells ruled that the jury could also consider second-degree murder or manslaughter in the case if they decided to not convict Frazee of first-degree murder. Second-degree murder carries a prison sentence of 8 to 24 years, and manslaughter carries a sentence of 2 to 6 years. His attorneys have pushed for lesser charges in this case. So we will see what happens. We will discuss this tonight and see where everyone is at with this. Like I said in a previous slide, Kelsey's father was crying when he saw, in the cam footage of Crystal pointing out the blood around the condo. At times she was pointing it out with a broom. And when Priest on the stand actually acted out the swings and stuff to testify about the blood spatter. Yeah, he was visibly shaken up, and people were sitting next to him were consoling him. So very emotional day in court, and I'm interested to find out what all of you think. You can put your thoughts in the comments, and we will discuss later tonight live. Hope to see you there. Bye now. Have a great day.